Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by MMA Veteran Jason Brilz. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. Yourself?
I'm doing good. Jason, you got a fight coming up December 14th at VFC 41. How's training been going for the fight?
Awesome. I'll tell you what, it's been a great training camp. We have, I don't know how many guys fighting on this card, so, the training partners are there every day, and it's been great.
You're training out of Premier Combat Center. How much better does it make the training when, like you mentioned, a lot of fighters from that gym are going to be on the same card as you? Does it make the training a lot better?
It makes it tougher. The training's always good at the gym. Right. There's guys always getting ready for fights, or, even when they're not getting ready, they'll come up and help you out. But knowing that they're fighting on the same card and, everybody's pushing, and so it's been great. I love it when we have multiple people fighting on the card.
Who are some of the bigger guys there to help you train? Some of the guys that I know that train out of there are, like bantamweights and lightweights and middleweights, but who are some of the heavier guys, the 200-plus guys that are there? Some
of the bigger guys, we have, like our coaches, Scott Morton, Ryan Jensen, Anthony Smith. I guess he's a 70-pounder now, but
right.
He's still a bigger guy. Joe Bodler, who's fought 2 VFCs ago. Just a bunch of real good guys.
How long have you been training there?
I've been at Premier for a couple years now. I mean, pretty much ever since they opened it.
Okay.
I follow Jensen around wherever he's training. I'm usually training with him.
Okay. And with all these guys fighting on the same card as you, who's going to be training, or who's going to be cornering you for this fight?
I usually have a buddy, Zach Stalder. Now, he doesn't train really in MMA, but he's used my wrestling partner for many years up at UNO. He's a Bellevue cop, which is a suburb of Omaha. So he's my main corner guy. And then I'll probably have like Kurt Pedoni or Ryan Jensen, one of those guys in my corner.
I see.
Technical aspect. Usually I'll always have Zach in my corner just for mental prep. Pretty much I know what I'm supposed to do when I get out there. And if I'm not doing it, he's not afraid to let me know.
I see. Now you're going to be taking on Dallas Mitchell. How much do you know about him?
Not a lot. I usually don't do a lot of homework on the guys I'm fighting. I just go out there and sort of do my thing. I know, he has a decent record, like 5-1 or something like that. Up and comer. Gunning for me, so.
Just curious, why do you not like to know a lot about your opponent going to a fight? Is it because if you see something on film, it might like kind of not control your mind, but he's going to do this, but then that might never come in the fight? Is it something where it's like that, where you don't want to get too much involved in what he's doing? Is it something where maybe in the past you've worried too much about what your opponent's going to do? What exactly has led you kind of down this road of not really getting too focused on what your opponent's going to do?
Exactly what you said. I try not to, I see a lot of people look at film and say, okay, when he does this, I'm going to do this.
Right.
But you know what? I'm not the fastest guy. I've never been the fastest guy, so my reflexes aren't, if he's throwing this, and then I'm going to do this and this.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go straight forward, and I'm going to throw my stuff at him. I'm going to make him counter me, or make him deal with my wrestling or my submissions. I'm not much of a defensive fighter. I'm more of an offense.
Now, Jason, you're 2-0 since you left the UFC. Have you been happy with the work that you've done? 2 wins, 1 via stoppage, and the other, last time out, it was a decision victory over Josh Bryant. Have you been pleased with the work that you've done post-UFC?
I have. The guys, they're getting tougher. They're getting younger. More well-rounded now. It's not like, the UFC, Bellator and all these other organizations, they have a lot of big name guys. But
right.
I mean, these smaller organizations, Victory and stuff, that's their feeders. That's where the next big thing's coming out of. So, to get wins in Victory is very satisfying for me, because I know these guys are up and comers. I know they're tough. They're not just some chumps.
Mm-hmm. Your tail end of the UFC run didn't go your way. You were stopped twice, and then you had the loss to Nogueira, which I personally thought you had won that fight, but the judges didn't see it that way. But when you were released by the UFC, did they tell you that it was basically just you lost 3 fights and that was why they let you go, or was it more based on you were stopped in those last 2 fights and that kind of what led you to being released? Did they explain at all why you were let go?
No, nothing. I mean, it was because I lost 3 fights in a row. Mm-hmm. It was pretty hard to justify keeping somebody after 3 losses, especially the way my final 2 had finished. And it was a sort of a blessing for me. I was able to get out, get some things fixed up on my body, let my head heal. That was the biggest thing for me, is let my head heal. I'd been dinged a couple times in practice, and then I'd go fight, not fully recovered, and some of those punches, they were. I'd have to look up to the screen to see where I got hit, because I didn't have a bruise, I didn't have a bump, I didn't have anything there. It was just like in the perfect spot, and I think maybe I'd been getting hit in the head too much. Mm-hmm. It was a nice little break, mm-hmm. And so I took almost 4 months off of sparring, and then I came back and I felt great. Mm-hmm. Felt great to get back in there again.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that you took time off from sparring, and also there was a year gap between fights. When you fought Will Dickey and when you fought Ryan Bader, there was a big gap in there. Was there ever any thoughts about possibly retiring?
Oh, no, nothing really. I've been real fortunate with my career. It's more of a hobby for me.
Right.
So I can take time off. I'm a firefighter here in Omaha, and that's my main gig, and it's something I'd love to do. And with fighting, it's like I said, it's a hobby, but something I take very seriously. Mm-hmm. I was just at lunch today with a couple buddies, and we're talking about people not taking fights seriously. I mean, the potential to get hurt in these, is great, and then you multiply it by 10 by not training for a fight or taking it seriously. I mean, it's crazy to me. But no, there was never any real thoughts of retiring or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you got released from the UFC, did you set any goals for yourself? And also, did you have anything that you wanted to improve on when you got released from the UFC? And if so, have you met any of those goals yet?
I don't know if I'll ever meet my goals that I want, that I set for myself in training. Mm-hmm. But some of the things I wanted to work on was, my defense, standing, my striking. I wanted to be more comfortable and more fluid, in my striking. Not being real tentative throwing shots, throwing shots and just sort of have it muscle memory. So I've been working a lot of certain techniques, certain moves, throwing them just as many times as I can during a practice. Mm-hmm. But just so when the time comes in a fight, it's automatic. I don't have to think, throw a jab now. Mm-hmm. Good deal. I want it to be sort of like my wrestling, where, it's more of a feel, it's more muscle memory, more automatic.
Mm-hmm. Now, earlier you said that, and I've seen previous interviews that you've done, and you've said that, fighting's your hobby. Just curious, why did you never decide to make this your full-time job? Was it just, it was never possible because, the money? Was it as a financial thing, or is it just that, you enjoy your other job so much you can't really leave that? Could you explain why you never decided to take up fighting full-time?
Well, initially it was money. Mm-hmm. There was no way I could support. I was married in 2000, And, the wife wanted a house, and she wanted a family, and same stuff I wanted. And, back then, and when I was fighting, it was $300 or something like that for a fight. Or, my very first fight was $50, and I got another $50 after I broke my arm. It was like, ooh, I got $100.
Right.
So I mean, it was never feasible, financially. And then as I got older, I had some real good jobs, and I landed on the fire department, and I was like, I see too many fighters, especially like on the Ultimate Fighter and stuff. These guys, this is my last chance. I quit my job. I did this and that. And it's like, I give them props for living their dream, but it's a tough sport, to make.
Right. Even
if you get 2 fights a year, 3 fights a year, initially you're only making, if you're winning, $15,000 a fight, you're looking at $45,000, pre-tax, and so you got to pay taxes. 40%'s gone right there, 35%'s gone right there, and then your manager, and all of a sudden your 45's cut down to $22,000. It's not a very lucrative sport.
Mm-hmm. Now, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and you know what? I love the firefighting. It's it's a sweet job. Mm-hmm. Something different every day. You go in and you just have no idea what's going to go. What's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference because you have a good job outside of fighting, and your career has gone very well. I mean, a lot of guys out there would give their right arm to have the kind of career that you have. You fought in the UFC a while, but do you think that, looking back on it now, do you think that anything would have changed? Do you think anything would have went different for you in your career had you been a full-time fighter?
I don't think so. You know what? My training schedule and my work schedule, it really works well for me. It gives my body a little time to rest in between real hard training sessions. So like yesterday, I was able to, I'll work out before I go to work at 7, and then while I'm at work, after 5 o'clock, we're allowed to work out. So I get 2 good cardio and strength workouts, the days that I'm working. And then, my off days, when I'm not at the firefighter job, then I'll go in and I'll either do stand-up or wrestling. Today was wrestling, or MMA or jiu-jitsu on those days, followed up with, another conditioning or another just, technique session. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's worked out very well for me, and, I don't think I'd ever look back and say, oh, I wish I would have not taken a job and just fought full time.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're a UFC vet. You fought there a while and had some success there. Is that the goal? Is it to get back there, or are you just happy, continuing this hobby, continuing to fight, continuing to pick up a buck here and there? Is there a bigger goal here of getting back to the UFC, or are you just happy doing what you're doing now?
Oh no, I definitely want to get back to the UFC. That's where all the tough guys are right now. And, I'm at that point in my career, and I probably have maybe a half dozen more fights in me or so, and then I'll hang them up. But I'd like to finish it out, fighting the tough guys. I don't want to just beat up a bunch of, I don't want to say chumps or anything
right.
like that, but I don't want to, just beat up a bunch of guys that aren't taking it very serious. Mm-hmm. I want to fight the best. I want to test myself.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel any pressure going into this fight? Because obviously you're fighting a guy who, is a young up-and-coming guy who's trying to make a name off you. Is there any pressure going into this fight? Obviously, every fight's important, but, considering you're fighting a guy who is trying to make a name off you, is there any more pressure?
No. You know what? I approach every fight the same. If it's a world title fight,
Right.
Like you said, every fight is important, and it's the one time that you underestimate somebody, that's a disheartening feeling. Mm-hmm. You go in there and you underestimate and go, oh man, how did I lose that? It's because, and
You're 38 years old. Considering that this is your hobby, does that make your love for the sport stay stronger because you don't do it, all the time? You're not burnt out from it. You can go and do something else and then come back to MMA. You don't have. It's not like completely. This is your only source of income and 24 hours a day, that's all you're doing, that's all you're thinking about. You have other stuff going on in your life. Does that help you keep the fire lit to compete at 38 years old?
I think so. I mean, it's like I'm approaching my 14th year of fighting. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if I had been fighting 3, 4, 5 times a year, I don't think my body would have held up, and I don't think the love would have been there anymore. You just get burnt out after a while. That's all you're going to do. Mm. So I think I've approached my career, just about, for me, the best way I could have.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you took some time off after your stint with the UFC because you said that you wanted to rest your head, rest your brain a little bit. But other than that, any serious injuries throughout your career? Or are you still pretty well put together considering you've been in the game for 14 years?
You know what? I'm pretty put together still. My very first fight, I broke my arm in the fight. Probably the first 15 seconds or so. And then after my stint with the UFC, went and got some bone spurs removed from an elbow. But other than that, just your minor aches and pains just from getting beat up day in, day out.
Mm-hmm. Jason, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
You know what? Come out to the Ralston Arena. It's going to be a great night. Appreciate all the support, from the fans out there, and I'd like to thank Premier Combat and the guys over at Disorderly Conduct for always helping me out.
Jason, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck December 14th at VFC 41 against Dallas Mitchell.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Have a good day.